What if I told you that much of the cool tech world assumes the USA is leading? Apple, Tesla, Google, supercomputers? But beneath that hype, there's a quieter giant that in many measurable ways is out-innovating, out-building, and out-deploying the US in key technologies. That giant is China. In this video, we'll explore why China isn't as popular in global tech culture as the US, but in many respects makes more refined, large-scale, industry-shaping technology. By the end, you'll see why China may be closer than you think to overtaking the US in influence, not just in factories but in our everyday lives. People around the world tend to think of the US when they think of tech innovation. Silicon Valley, Apple, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, brands that are visible, aspirational, global, and there's no denying that the US has made hugely important breakthroughs and still leads in many cutting-edge areas. But why does China, despite its massive scale and speed, not enjoy the same level of cool factor? Some reasons: branding and marketing. American companies often have more experience, more cultural cachet, more global reach in consumer markets. Language, media, culture, tech stories are often told through Western lenses. Chinese achievements don't always break into global pop culture in the same way. Political and image issues. Concerns about censorship, data privacy, human rights, political system, etc. create friction or negative perception. Consumer-facing innovation versus infrastructure/industrial innovation. The US often does consumer gadgets very well. China does infrastructure, industrial, system-wide tech at scale. These differences mean people see the US as the leader, even when, in many dimensions, China is arguably doing better engineering, deployment, or system building. Now let's look at where the reality tells a different story. I'll walk you through concrete domains in which China has either caught up or overtaken the US in terms of deployment, scale, cost, or innovation. 1. 5G and digital infrastructure. China has deployed over 4.39 million 5G base stations as of March 2025. 5G penetration among users in China has reached about 75.9%. The scale of China's investment in next-generation infrastructure, fiber, optical network, etc., is massive. The government policy pushes for 10 gigabit optical networks, etc. By contrast, the US has fewer base stations in aggregate, given size and population, and deployment is often slower, more fragmented, multiple providers, local politics, permitting. The US concerns over security and supply chain complicate things. 2. EV batteries and electric vehicles. China controls over 70 to 80% of global lithium-ion battery manufacturing capacity. In 2022, China's battery manufacturing capacity was about 0.9 terawatt-hours, TW, roughly 77% of the global share. China not only makes the batteries, but also refines many of the raw materials and leads in battery recycling capacity. Plus, the EV market in China is huge. China is the largest EV market in terms of sales. A large share of EVs sold globally are built in China. Because of this scale, China gains deep manufacturing know-how, economies of scale, and supply chain integration that are hard to replicate overnight. 3. Artificial intelligence and model development. According to Stanford's AI Index in 2024, U.S. private AI investment was approximately $109.1 billion, while China's was $9.3 billion. But China is closing gaps in a number of areas: number of AI papers, the number of AI patents, model performance benchmarks. China has strong AI policy, full-stack industrial policy, supporting hardware, chips, applications, talent. China's adoption of generative AI among businesses and consumers is also very high, though regulation do influence what is used and how. 4. Other areas: payments, drones, high-speed transport payment systems. In China, many people use mobile/digital wallet/super apps such as WeChat Pay, Alipay. These systems are widely adopted for everyday payments, smaller retailers, etc., more integrated than legacy credit card systems in many other countries. Drones. China has large domestic drone makers, DJI is often cited. Scale of deployment, both consumer and industrial, agriculture, surveying, etc. The combination of manufacturing, R&D, and internal market gives them advantages. High-speed rail. China has built thousands of kilometers of high-speed rail. Many more stations, many more people served. Their rail network's scale and speed and ability to build new lines is something few countries match. So if China does so much, why don't we see it in the headlines or think of it first when we think innovator? Here are several reasons, each interacting with the others. 1. Branding, soft power, and consumer culture. U.S. brands have long had global appeal. Many people around the world want iPhones, Tesla vehicles, Google services. These are aspirational, visible products. Chinese firms often focus first on domestic or regional markets or sell low-priced versions abroad. The branding is more utilitarian. Design or marketing often less aimed at global luxury or status. 2. Regulation, censorship, and political reputation. Chinese tech also often faces criticism over surveillance, data privacy, censorship. Those create negative perceptions abroad. Restrictive policies in China sometimes limit the experience of Chinese tech for global consumers, e.g. access, open platforms. 3. Geopolitical and security concerns. U.S. tends to dominate media, academic publishing, international standards bodies. The narrative is often U.S.-centric. Export controls, trade restrictions, and sanctions often reduce China's presence in certain global markets or slow its penetration. 4. Differences in innovation. Style U.S. tends to innovate in new categories: software, social media, consumer hardware. These are more visible, often more disruptive in a consumer's life. China often innovates in scaling, refining, manufacturing process engineering, cost reduction, deploying infrastructure. These are less sexy, but sometimes more impactful. Before arguing who makes better tech, we have to define better. Different metrics matter depending on domain. Here are some dimensions and how US versus China compare. Performance bleeding edge versus reliability/scale. The US often pulls ahead in research, novel architectures, first-in-class devices. China more often pulls ahead in scaling up those technologies reliably, making them cost-effective and refining them at volume. Cost and manufacturing efficiency. China has the advantage in supply chains, manufacturing costs, and scale. It can build things cheaper in bigger volumes. Deployment and adoption inside country. Chinese government coordination plus large population plus regulatory capacity often allow China to deploy infrastructure, 5G, high-speed rail, EV charging, smart city, etc., faster domestically. Ecosystem and consumer experience. US often leads in user interface, software ecosystems, open hardware/software. But China has made big strides here, especially domestically, WeChat, Douyin, etc., though global reach is still smaller in some categories. So better can mean faster, cheaper, broader deployment. China versus first mover, brand, novelty, user experience globally, often US. Where do we go from here? Is China going to overtake America in global tech leadership? Many indicators suggest China is well-positioned to do so in certain infrastructure-heavy and system-scale domains: 5G/6G, EVs, batteries, clean energy, smart city tech. But obstacles remain. Export controls, especially for advanced chips, talent constraints, intellectual property issues, regulatory red tape, and global trust challenges. The U.S. may still hold advantages in certain types of innovation: AI model leadership, brand power, consumer tech, software ecosystems. So what do you think? Is China quietly winning parts of the tech race while America basks in the limelight? Or does America still have the edge where it counts most? Leave a comment. Which tech do you think China is doing better than the US? And what tech do you believe America still leads in? And why? If you liked this video, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because this rivalry is far from over, and it's going to shape the next decades of our lives. Welcome to Money Route.